Bismillah. Welcome to Art as Sacred. I'm your host, Tasleem Jamila. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in the world, in the cosmos. I have an amazing guest for you today, Malika Ayubbi. Malika Ayubbi is currently based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And for the past 7 years, Malika has curated her work around Islamic calligraphy painting using a wet on wet acrylics technique and other mixed media. Gold gilding has become stationary in most current works, as the artist feels that it adds an element of divinity to each of her pieces. Malika is inspired by the rich and masterful world of Islamic art, the sacred teachings of the Holy Quran and Hadith, and the poetic contributions of Jalaluddin Rumi, Sheikh Hasham Kabani, and Ibn al-Arabi. Malika Ayubbi, her art has been featured in private and public collections, university events, and mosques. And in 2020, her work graced the stage for an event which hosted the renowned Islamic musical group, the Firdausee Ensemble, as they performed for the first time in Michigan. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. I have an amazing artist, Malika Ayubbi, and I've actually admired her artwork from afar. We have a lot of friends in common, circle of friends online, and her artwork is captivating. It is amazing. It actually captured me with the calligraphy. She's mixed media, just really a dynamic visuals that takes you on a journey when you look at it. And so I want to welcome you to the
Thank you.
podcast, Malika.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much. And all those, gosh, the beautiful words pertaining to me and my work. I'm blown away. I'm always shocked at how far my work gets out there, and I never know who's really looking or admiring until I hear it, or online or something. So thank you. Allah bless you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to me, that's the beauty of art and an artist, because I know as an artist, sometimes, just like you, we may be in our own space doing our work, and we're wondering, like, okay, I'm doing it because I love it, and maybe God inspired me, but how will other people, see the art or receive it? And I want to
Right.
start back, I guess, with your journey as a child. What was your first memory of art in your childhood? And were you captivated, or did you paint or draw when you were young?
Well, Bismillah Rahim, my first experience as someone who appreciates artistry really came from my great grandmother. She was a solopreneur, a hat maker. I myself am a convert, growing up Christian. She was the hat lady in the church, which is a very strong tradition as among Africans in America. And she would make the most exquisite and the most, um, just dramatic
Wow.
hat. They would dip in the front and cover the eye, and
Oh,
feathers would be
wow.
here, sprawling out feathers. And she would just be in her garage. We several grandkids amongst the clan. We would all be in her garage with her, just watching her spin out all these creations. And so I think that was really my first artistic impression. And just watching how industrious she was, churning out all these magnificent creations. So that was probably really the first impression in my mind. And then, of course, going through grade school, um, I always like to say, this story about in fourth grade. Um, all the kids would be they'd be handed out this new, uh, art project or whatever. And I remember the first one that I got in fourth grade. There was just a box of crayons on each table, which were kind of used and nubbed up, and just kind of just those ones that just on the box. And I remember wanting a fresh box of crayons. I was kind of some kind of monitor. I forget what kind of responsibility I had, but I opened up the supply closet and I saw that there were new crayons. And I took it upon myself to take a new box of crayons out of there because I wanted this shiny new box of crayons, not the nubs. I found that I could do more if they were pointier, and I did get in trouble, but took it. It was just that artist inspiration where you want something that tools to me are, and if you saw my tool arsenal of all the things that I have, you say, girl, you need to stop it, like stop buying stuff. But it's just that was kind of this sign to me that the tools make the work, and I just really want the best tools that I can possibly have to deliver what I can do in the best way. So that was amongst my first memories as an artist.
Wow, what a great story. I mean, it's so much in that what you said. You have history of the African American women with the hats in the church, and I have one of those aunts who from
Yeah,
Detroit. She still lives in Detroit. She was the hat
that's right.
person, and that's just amazing. The beauty and the art in just even you can make an art out of anything. I tell
Oh
people with
yeah.
the
Oh
art,
yeah.
and so I just want to talk about what were some of your. Okay, so let's walk through.
Mhm.
Are you self-taught? Any formal training of classes? And then also another question into that, you
Mhm.
tell a story. What was your first piece that you actually sold for money? So we'll go on that. Go ahead. Just talk.
Okay. Well, I am, previous to pursuing this path of spiritual art. I'm a mother of four children, and that was the primary focus of anything that I was doing was raising my kids. But
Mm,
we're from California, and we moved here to kind of step foot on the spiritual path with our sheikh, and also because my husband decided to study chaplaincy at U of M.
mm,
We moved here in 2005, and we had bought this big house, and there was nothing in the house. We humble beginnings. We didn't have much, and but I knew that I wanted some Islamic art in my house, and
mm,
I'm not traditionally trained. All I knew is that I wanted to somehow merge this art of calligraphy with kind of a more modern style and more color. At that time, you were getting online. There wasn't much. You might get a lot of Turkish calligraphy on scroll,
okay.
but there was nothing on canvas, nothing with any kind of color. It was all just black ink with kind of a white or cream background. So that really wasn't serving what I wanted to do with my house. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna make my own. My husband actually has an art degree,
Oh wow.
doesn't use.
Look, it came over to you. Look, it like jumped from him. Like,
I
wow.
guess, so. But the irony about that is he kept this whole big crate of all his old art
Oh.
supplies in the garage, and I was like, I asked him, I said, well, will you teach me what you know? And he's like, no. So not so cold heartedly, but he just wasn't interested in pursuing anything about art. And I was so on fire, but our ambitions didn't match up. And he was like, I'm not interested in teaching you art. And I will get him about that to this day.
Well,
But I
well,
went
look
out
at
there.
you now. That's the funny thing. Look at you now. So anyway, go ahead. That's amazing.
Mashallah. I'm just grateful to Allah because I feel like this whole journey of me doing art and merging my vision,
Yeah.
being an American convert, with the tremendous, beautiful world of Islamic art.
Oh yeah.
It's been interesting, and it's been a mercy from Allah. Really, anything that's opened up from this is really has just been a mercy from Allah. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, answer your second question. I'm trying to remember what it was. Um, if you
Because
could refresh
I
my
know
memory.
as an artist, many times, we make art. Like you said, you started. That's amazing for yourself, and then you're wondering, okay, someone maybe said, "Oh, I like that. How much of that? Are you selling it?" I remember that happened to me when I started out. I started out as a fashion designer, and I'm just
Yeah,
like, and I just hurry up and made up a price. So that's why I asked, like, I'm like, "Oh, sure." Actually, I wasn't selling it. I was kind of like
yeah,
insecure about it a little bit, but I was just like, "Wow, somebody want to buy my stuff." So
yeah.
that's what.
I remember that moment. I do. I think I had put out. enough art. I can't remember who it was. One of those millionaires said, a very famous millionaire, I can't remember his name. He said, put out enough product in the world until people start to recognize that you actually are doing this, you know.
I
So
love
I just, because I wanted so much of it in my house, a good friend of mine came over, um, and she just had this bundle of money, and she was like, you know, I'll buy all your art
Oh,
for this.
wow.
And I was like, really?
Wow.
Okay. And so it was just a big haul for her, and she, you know, she still has the art to this day. That was like, oh gosh, yeah, that in
Wow.
the 2005, 2006 years, yeah.
What a friend. Look, somebody could come over and get a bundle of my stuff. Look, you can have it. That is amazing stuff.
Well, I gotta tell you, in retrospect, you know, the amount that she offered me really did take you know, the worth of the art. But you know, I was just so excited. You know, like you said, somebody appreciates your work other than
Yeah.
you and willing to pay for it, and you're just like, sure, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
Islamic art, I mean, come on, it's the most amazing in the world. Some of the
Yeah.
most amazing art in the world, from the architecture
Absolutely.
to everything. Who
Oh
is
yeah.
your influence? Do you have any influences in the Islamic world?
I have so many influences, you wouldn't even believe it. I can't even tell you who they all are. I mean, this movement of Islamic calligraphy is so dynamic and it spans over so many continents that you can always be, you're never shortchanged of
Mhm.
the amazement that comes out of the Islamic world, as far as calligraphy goes. I mean, initially, like I said, I looked at a lot of Turkish calligraphy, which is always very, very exquisite, always, you know, just very disciplined and very sharp. And, you know, it has fathered many styles, the Turkish calligraphy movement. And in fact, they say if you want to learn calligraphy, you actually do need to go to Turkey because you
Mhm.
know it has, you know, it's the origin of Islamic calligraphy. But I found myself, because I wanted to see more. I wanted more out of the calligraphy than I was seeing.
Mhm.
I wanted, because I wanted so much color and so much other things to happen with it. I actually started looking into Persian Islamic calligraphy,
Okay.
and oh my God, the Persians, they are in this movement where the calligraphy is doing more than just being one dimensional. It's two dimensional. It's three dimensional. It's interweaving with
Wow.
other letters and presenting shadow and so many other things that I was really interested in with my work. I really wanted to figure out how I could blend and present more context and more dimension to the calligraphy than what I was seeing.
Okay.
That was like my primary focus. Really, in my earlier work, I was interested in like how shadow could play into the calligraphy and not just have it be one dimensional. So I saw a lot of that being modeled in the Persian calligraphy movement. And to this day, they are still just so dynamic. If you go on Instagram and you just search up, I don't know how you find it, but they are always just on the cutting edge of what calligraphy can do. If
Wow.
you're looking for acrobatics, then, you know, like me, I'm just in the circus.
Oh, wow. Your work is so amazing. You said something about the color, and different cultures have their own, I guess, style with the calligraphy. Do you feel like you're bringing your heritage, your African American heritage, to the calligraphy and the art?
You know, because I'm a convert, you know, for me, what I tried to do with my work, and not because I'm a convert, because how to say this, what I was interested in doing is merging this movement of abstract calligraphy
Hmm.
with traditional Islamic calligraphy.
Okay.
And I find that I'm managing to do that, but I'm still really on the precipice, if you will, of what I want to do with my work. I still really, for me, I haven't even set foot in the direction of how I want to see my work.
Mm.
I aspire to be like, my first real kind of virtual mentor was an artist named Khalid Al-Sai. And
Mm.
if you Google Khalid Al-Sai,
Hmm.
he is, I believe he's originally from Damascus, He's Syrian. His work is so dynamic and so beautiful, and talk about acrobatics and what the potential that calligraphy, Islamic calligraphy has. He has stretched, I think, to those merits for sure. He uses a lot of color. His work is very ethereal. It kind of takes you on this, a lot of it looks as though it's underwater. So there's this very um, kind of water-based ethereal, aspect to his work, which I really love. And I actually got to meet him a couple of years ago. I was doing the Ann Arbor Arts Festival.
Oh, wow.
And a friend of mine, I don't know how we got on the subject, but she said, he comes to U of M and he teaches sometimes.
Wow.
And you cannot imagine
I know.
how educated I was. I mean, here's this master calligrapher you always just see online and you think you'll never get access to. Come to find out he really comes there. And she was like, I think I have his email. I'll share it with you. And I reached out to him, in the ethers, you don't know what's going to happen. And
Yes.
he actually responded to me, and
Wow.
my that blew my mind, really. I mean, he was so sweet and so generous, and he wrote back and he said, I'm coming to U of M in November, and you're welcome to come to any of my seminars. And he actually had a seminar over at MoMA, which I attended, and I got to meet him, and it was just amazing. And that was really my first calligraphy lesson with him.
Wow. That is amazing. Amazing story, just to reach out and to remain humble, because you have so many people you never know admire your work. And you said you were at a festival in Ann Arbor. So how, being that your art is based around Islamic calligraphy with the Islamic, you have the Quran and the Arabic and the different things. How do other people who are not Muslim, how do they react to your work?
I've gotten a mix of reactions, mostly positive. A lot of the times my family is not Muslim.
Okay.
On my mother and father, they're not Muslim, and my mother and father-in-law are not Muslim. But the reaction I get from them, the men rather, is that I can't understand it, but it's beautiful.
Okay.
And my mom was always just like, "That's so beautiful." My mother-in-law is just like, "That's just so beautiful." So I think with the men, they always want it to be, connected to some kind of depth of understanding with it if they can understand what it means, and the aesthetics of it just kind of fly out the window. But I remember a couple of years ago, I did an opening for a friend. She was doing this kind of cultural exchange program, and she invited me to display my work. And there was a European man that walked up to my table, and he was looking and very intently kind of studying. And he said, I've been to Turkey, and this really just reminds me a lot of the things that I've seen in Turkey, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I was just like,
yeah,
floored, like really, like that my work was actually something that that recalled a lot of beauty, because the work in Turkey is just, oh my God, it's exquisite. So I was just honored that he actually had the mind to reference my work, in comparison to what's happening in Turkey. So
that's amazing. Have you ever been to Turkey?
I did, and I planned, before COVID, I was, really, really deeply planning to go, because I wanted to visit the Maqam Sayyid Rumi, of course, and just I was planning on living in his Maqam. I need to soak up all that I can from this man spirit, so that I can keep going. But then COVID happened and kind of shut down those plans. So, but inshallah.
Yeah, so you just talked about that. You said you went to a cultural exchange. It's something I was gonna just curious about, as far as the man. So he wasn't Muslim. Is that correct? You said he wasn't Muslim.
No.
Okay. And how do you use it sometimes? Like, is it sometimes an introduction to, or just an opening to share your faith with them, or the meaning of your words? Because people who don't know what calligraphy is or Islamic calligraphy, wondering its actual really like words or verses from the Quran, like, do you ever use that as a way to maybe share and say, this means this?
Yeah, that's actually a very strong intention of mine for 2021. My mother-in-law has been responsible for her own artist social change movement. She works very heavily with artists within the U.S. and without the U.S. To kind of make like reform or just to bridge cultures. And she has this program called Fandango Obone, which is she's Japanese ancestry, and so she works with people in the African American community, people in the Latino community to kind of form this program around our histories and how they can merge our cultures, how they can merge and really complement each other. So Fandango is coming up this year. It's probably going to be a virtual program, but my daughter, who's a musician, and my husband, who's a chaplain, and he does some meditative work and a lot of meditative work actually in the community.
I know, amazing.
Speaker, he's an amazing speaker. So I was listening, and as they're planning this Fandango, and I'm like, how can I get in there? I'm just trying. And I actually asked them, I said, how come I'm not asked to be a part of this conversation? But I think, what I'm finding is that the visual artists are usually the last ones to be, sometimes, I won't say always, sometimes the last ones to be invited to the table because they feel like, oh, let me get the context of the juice of the program, and then I can kind of flesh it out with some visuals at the end. But I really wanted to be in the middle of that conversation to say, well, how can I visually represent, what's happening here with, American Muslims? Because we get flushed out of the conversation more often than not. And it's really a disservice. Our contribution matters because we are we're in the middle of it all. We're kind of being these eyewitnesses to everything that's happening in the world. And we kind of matriculate that and come up with something that people have never seen before. So I feel like that's a lot of what my work is about, is taking in all the context and the histories that I've witnessed and churning out something that is powerful to speak to what's happening right now, with the change that's coming about now. It's not like it was 50 years ago. I don't want to replicate that. I want something new. So,
and you're doing an amazing job as far as being like innovative with something fresh, and you spoke about it actually on your website. I wrote it down where you said it's fresh and modern, tied to traditional roots, and I was like, yes, that is exactly what your art is. And I know you mentioned, like you say, you talked about COVID, you had plans to go to Turkey, and also there's still a lot of online events available. And so I was wondering, more and more people, I know myself, we're spending, we're spending all day mostly at home. And I know I've spent more time now on projects that I left before, like minor stuff for me, like hanging up pictures on the wall, and I bought more plush pillows and painted. And I spend more time decorating, like, my house now. So have you actually redecorated your house or maybe done more art even for more people, not just yourself, but others during COVID because they want to look at beautiful things at home?
I think, yeah, definitely to both of those questions. I'm seeing, I've spent all this week really kind of reimagining what I can do with my space. Because so much of the space now is about carving out spaces for people to have Zoom in my house. My husband runs a few programs during the week. My daughter has occasional programs, and I need my space as well to create whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like how to partition up my house, to serve whatever the needs are. And so I've just been trying to reimagine. I lately gravitated towards what I'm calling like Afro chic.
Oh, I love that.
and that's been a long time coming for me because I have always, like I said, been studying the aesthetics of the whole world, and unfortunately, um, Africa gets left out of the conversation to say that there aren't any. I won't say no, there aren't any, but that our aesthetic kind of gets left at the
Mhm.
bottom of the ladder for some reason, unless you're like exploiting, masks and all these different other kinds of art that I haven't really found appealing. But I think now, for whatever reason, God is opening up the vision in me to kind of merge the beautiful West African styles of Islamic art with what I am here in America. And so I really want to work on a collection soon that kind of will speak to that.
Wow.
And I don't know what the vision is completely, but I'm just asking Allah to like really open that up, open the floor up for that, because it's a long time coming, and I do want us to be invited to the table for that conversation.
That's so
Um,
powerful. What you just said, you
yeah.
said, I'm gonna ask Allah about it. And that's really what this whole project right here in my conversation is about. It's just the art as sacred and spirituality. What do you have any other, I know you said you just said ask Allah, you're gonna pray about it. Do you have
Hmm.
any other, like, I guess, routines or rituals that you do before you start painting? Or is there like a process, and how is
Yeah.
it therapeutic for you? Is it like a healing for you to do your art?
I mean, on that note, Islam itself is its interior is built around healing the human being.
Yeah.
Everything about the Islamic tradition speaks to healing
Hmm.
the human condition. So I've been fortunate enough to spend the last maybe 20 plus years with a sheikh under the Naqshbandi tradition. First being my first teachers being Maulana Sheikh Nazim, and then after he returned to Allah, his successor, Maulana Sheikh Hisham Kabani, and their teachings are really all about, they're rooted in this sort of like the Prophet Muhammad SAW being the first, the primordial man, the primordial light that supersedes all creation, and everything kind of moves through his light.
Hmm.
So that's been inculcated in me, kind of routinely visited me in my heart for so long that when I decided to paint, Sheikh Sham was really the first person that said,
Hmm.
"Yeah, yes, do this. This is good."
Wow.
And then with his kind of stamp and approval, just kind of having my art be rooted in those teachings,
Hmm.
equality, fairness, the beauty of the Prophet, um, coming through that lens, my work is like that. So for me, um, before I start to paint and during, it's very important for me to kind of um, set up this metaphysical space to curate my art, meaning that I just really take my time and I play a lot of salawat or Quran, and I might be inspired by a book that I've read earlier in the day or that week, or listen to a talk by some of the sheikhs, or some salawat that I need to do during that day. So it's really, really important for me to have that govern the creative process for me.
Okay.
I rely heavily on that. I cannot work without it. So,
Mm.
um, and I feel like that's to the credit of Awliya Allah. Like, and I've had dreams, where if it was funny. I don't know if I can share this, but um, I was, I also do wedding design and event design, and I happen to do some work for the Beacon, oh my goodness, Beacon Foundation,
Okay.
for one of their Maulid programs, honoring the Prophet Sallallahu. And gosh, what is his name? There's an artist out of Canada, a Nasheed artist, and it's escaping me right now, his name. Ooh, I can't believe it.
Okay.
I'm gonna Google it. But anyway, he mentioned he mentioned Habib Omar, and how Habib Omar had inspired so much love in him that he was able to write this nasheed. And I was like, well,
Mhm.
okay. I knew that for myself personally with my sheikh, how
Okay.
a sheikh can like mold you and love you and you just get inspired, right? But I was like, okay, can that happen with anyone else? So I just had this tinge of doubt. It was,
Mm.
I don't even know what it was, but it was just like, yeah, okay, all right, you know. And I was just wondering how does Habib Omar inspire,
Mm.
So I went home and I went to sleep that night and I had a dream with Habib Omar.
Wow, mashallah.
And he'd given me this thing, and then when I woke it up, I was like, "Oh, I love him! I love
Wow.
you know."
Wow.
But
But
it's
that
just that.
story in itself is so beautiful. Just to have the approval of your spiritual guide, your teacher, that is everything. So, uh, wow, what an amazing story. Like that. So what artwork was that? Like I was looking at your site and I see a lot of your work online. I see a lot of people with your artwork that I know. So, what came out of it? Like what picture? Like which art piece?
So it was kind of like this trail. It's it's hard to explain, but the Aulia, they really are this kind of like corporation. It's hard to explain.
I like that. I never heard it like that. Corporate, that's a good one. Okay. I like
you
that.
know,
Corporation.
right. They're all in this family and they all have different things that they do for
Mhm.
you. But I know very well that Ali Allah, they're artists for sure. But he gave me a tool. It wasn't a picture that came out of it. It
Mhm.
was a tool that he gave me. And
Mm.
that tool for me has been just really,
Mhm.
whatever. But it's
Mhm.
just to say that oh, what am I trying to say? I think that when
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say go finish going. I was about to say that was kind of the next question of saying, do you feel like as you grow spiritually, your art transforms or it expands with you?
That's an interesting question because I would say before COVID, I thought I was kind of high flying, and you feel this sort of nurturing in your work and you feel like, oh yes, everything is going exactly the way it should be. But I found that with COVID and with the restriction that's happening at first, like in 2020 was amazing for me, even though there was all this, these terrible events going on around us. I still was having a pretty productive year,
Mm.
but I noticed as the year has gone on with so much, restriction and so much limitation physically, in interaction with the world physically, it's really had an effect on me personally because I'm such a social person. I thrive off of conversation with people and meeting people and energy exchange and the spiritual exchange that can go with that. And so that kind of constriction, I have to fight with it. I have to struggle with it, which has become a tool for me to connect even deeper with the teachings of my sheikh, or just to rely more heavily, lean into breathing more, or asking more, calling on Allah more. So I think it's just been kind of this opportunity to go deeper,
Mm.
and so that's not always a pretty process,
Yes.
but it's a necessary one in order for me to keep going, in order for me to keep moving in the direction that I'm trying to, inshallah.
Now, what you said, I like that you said that about it's not always beautiful, the struggle. I'm
Mm,
just picturing some of your artwork, like showing it in your artwork, like the struggle,
mm,
the beauty in the
mhm.
struggle. And what's the quote that Rumi said about the wound? The light is what is
Oh yeah,
the
the
most
wound,
famous quote, that
the light.
quote. Um,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that, and as I was looking at your site with the picture of like the kind of whirling dervish turning, and I've seen so many, but yours, each one to me is just so amazing and so different. What
Thank
were
you.
you reading some Rumi, or where were you when you created that piece, like spiritually or just emotionally within yourself? What inspired you to actually say, okay, I'm going to do my dervish, whirling dervish?
Well, I think that the role of tariqas have played such a glorified role in Islam. Like people, of course, it's controversial, but people always think there's this glory road to joining a tariqa. That you get to do all these zikrs and you'll be flying and you'll be having reading hearts, whatever they see. There's this kind of glorious, this glamorous side of tariqa. But my experience with tariqa is like, tariqas are hospitals.
Yeah.
They're hospitals for whatever the torn parts that we have as humans. They're there to kind of heal and kind of shape your soul around the light of Allah. Back to Allah you go. So I've really had a lot of struggles. Like self repair has been a huge conversation with me, with my own personal self. And I've struggled a lot because I've had to like go, with my sheikh and kind of do that repair work. And so along that journey, Sayyidina Rumi has been just hugely significant in how I'm able to bridge some of the disconnect that happens during that process.
Okay.
I will sometimes, I went through this period where it was just like this void was happening to me, this kind of like parting of the sea, it felt like, where I just, so many of my parts, so many parts of myself were disconnected. Yeah. And during the silence of all that happening, during all the bewilderment that happens during that process, I would just open up a book of Sayyidina Rumi's poem and or poetry, and just he would speak to me. He would kind of feel it was the necessary information that needed to go into that void in order for me to just keep my sanity.
Okay.
And for that reason, I like to say that he's like my father. I have like a few fathers, spiritual fathers, but he is definitely, along with Ibn Arabi, they've been very instrumental in like just healing kind of those the valleys, so to speak.
That's
so
cool. Now that's really powerful. So like you said, just what people think a spiritual journey is. It reminds me of a meme I think I saw online about what people think it is, and it was somebody just sitting in lotus pose with their little fingers together, and it was like what it really is, and her hair was all over the place. It was just all over, meaning until it comes into it. So speaking of like the visuals, do you see your work first? Do you just go and have a blank canvas and you start painting? Do you draw on a little piece of paper when you get the inspiration? Because I know as a poet, my phone is filled with memos, and I don't know if I'll ever empty them all. And I have little verses all over the place. Like I write on whatever. So how is it for a visual artist?
I'm the same way. I recently looked at my phone photos and I have like 17,000. Oh my God. I'm just like, you need to go and clean this up. I don't know what kind of like, what are you going to do with all this? And how do you revisit it? You're not even going to know. So I've become this kind of visual hoarder.
I like that. The visual hoarder. Look, I thought I had a lot. I have thousands. I cleared some of it out. Some of it was horrible and some of it was good.
Yeah, I just have become this visual consumer. Like my daughter the other night, I have older kids. My kids are like, young adults. And so she was watching this documentary on how to, I think it was like, what do you call it when you, minimalism.
Okay. Oh yeah.
As I was shopping for more stuff, right? She's sitting next to me and she's trying to delve into this program. We're talking about getting radio stuff, and I was so antagonistic, and I was challenging her. Just sitting there scrolling. I'm next to her, just trying to like become more intelligent about managing stuff, and here I was just collecting more. So it was such a poetic justice.
That is funny.
It's
minimal. Which I think that's the new millennial thing, like small houses, don't need a lot, which is it's kind of good, in a way. But I find myself constantly organizing as well, and then I'm just like, okay, it still looks like I got too much, like.
Right.
And then my husband's a collector, so I'm like, okay. But I'm constantly giving away stuff because my art space, I don't know. Do you feel like this? I feel like when I create, my art space has to look a certain way. Like I don't like a lot of clutter unless it's just my papers when I'm working on something. But I don't like to create a lot of clutter because I feel like
Yeah.
it clutters me. Like how do you feel like your art space, your workspace? How does it have to be like the environment?
Oh, don't invite me to that conversation because I mean, when you're working with mixed media, I feel like I need to have all those things at my fingertip, and so
Okay.
there's rulers and calculators and tape measurements and gold foil, and markers and
Oh,
pencils,
wow.
so scissors. Like it really looks like a first grade like
I was about
art.
to say that. My daughter's in fourth grade. I'm gonna drop her off at your house. She would love it. She would just be
Oh
like, "Yay!" She loves stuff. She loves. That's how her space looks like.
yeah, she needs to come over here. I feel like I would have like an art emporium. If I were to ever open up some kind of space for creatives, people would just go
Yeah.
crazy. Like there's too much in here. And
Oh, but that's that childlike nature that you keep, and I think that's the most thing I miss. And I only have. That's one of my. My next question is like, have you taught others, and especially children, and like me, I usually teach children like theater and stuff, and it's like
yeah,
I usually work with as young as 4 years of age, and I miss them so much. I felt like they kept me young and vibrant, and I could scream, and we would do yoga. So it's like
yeah,
what do you miss about, like, what are you looking forward to after we can meet up again in
yeah.
circumstances? What are you looking forward to? What kind of social environment with your art are you looking forward to again?
Well, I think, before COVID, I was working with the Ann Arbor Library because I have about three veins with my art.
Hmm.
I do paper crafts, I do wedding and events, and then I do my, visual arts on canvas or however framed or whatever.
Okay.
So before that, I was working with the Ann Arbor Library to I introduced for the second year Islamic card making for
Oh,
our
wow.
yeah. So for
Okay,
two
so when
years,
are those coming in the store or on your website?
I thought,
Ramadan's coming up. Come on.
I, yeah. I thought I should do that because the library I would get like 50 easily, 50 to 100
I was about
participants.
to say that. Like, you want to
Um,
you want to be like busy? Like, come on.
the problem is I don't have time. Like I wish I
Yeah.
had, a few other assistants, people that could kind of, I told my daughter the other day we were sitting at breakfast and I said I need about 10 of me, and she says everybody says that, Mom, and I said no, I really do, because all the things that I want to do are just not going to get done by a single me, and I'm not organized enough to
Yeah.
put it all out. So I'm trying to figure out. I'm really trying to hone down which project I want to put out this Ramadan. Last year I did decorating kits, where I had the paper fans, and you got one of my
Beautiful.
original, kind of cutout things, and so I thought, should probably do that, but then I thought, oh, so the card making kits, I may focus on that because there's so many kids at home and so many,
Yes.
we want to connect with family or loved ones and send out our greetings. So
So I'm
fingers
putting you on the spot. You got to do it. Because my daughter, because as parents with younger ones, like we have in our house, we have old and, well, our older ones don't live with us, so they're grown
Right.
and gone. Okay, so I just have the little one here, and so keeping her entertained is a job in itself. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
she has these two, academic artsy parents, and she's just full of energy. Okay, let's do this. Let's do.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking at a way like, how can I always keep her Islam in her
Mhm.
curriculum? She goes to a regular school. I mean, it's online, of course. It's Montessori, but I'm always just like, okay, Sundays we go over extra things in the Quran, and during prayer, I'm like, sit with me. This means this, but it would be
Yeah.
amazing because she loves art. She's like a little visual artist. So she
Yeah.
loves art. She loves to paint, and it would be great to have. Like, I just make up stuff. I'm not a
Yeah.
painter like that, but I'll just make up stuff. But it would be good to actually have some cards or something really pretty that she can see, because
Yeah.
then you can have role models to see. Like, look at this, because she. So I'm
Absolutely.
putting it out there, for us parents, like for the families. We want some. We don't want to have to draw some little stick people in our Ramadan cards. We want some actual nice ones, like people have nice cards for their holidays in the store. You know.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I was asking Allah, and that's a confirmation. I was going, what should I focus on this Ramadan? And here you go. So yeah, inshallah. I mean, the challenge for me was, because I do have such a kid-like nature, I know how dynamic creativity can be.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to offer something where, I'm involving a creative process for people, I want to make sure there's enough materials where, because what I was finding is that in the library, even though I'd have my example, what they could make, people would just turn those ideas upside down, inside out, and just from whatever creativity they have going inside. It was just such a dynamic process for them that I feel like I didn't have enough materials or enough color, or. So if I do offer something like that, my goal would be to just make sure there's enough.
Yeah, just the basics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as parents and with children, we have a bunch of stuff at home anyway. And children are so creative. They're going to do their own thing anyway.
Right.
You're going to give them as much of stuff. And it's like, oh, like I used to work with children. They're like, oh, Miss Tasleem, I don't need all that. I just did this. Because I used to have them make like puppets for like theater puppets. And I'm like, here, make it out of this. And I'm like, wow, yours looks so much better than mine.
Better than mine, right?
Okay, so I have one last question. And it's kind of a I guess you could answer anyway. I know as a creative, a lot of times we're more in tune usually with our emotions, or a lot of people say art, it is very a spiritual process. Um, and it's times when I know as some artists, when they're creating, they're very emotional. And so I'm wondering, like, was there a time, or is it often when you are creating your work, or you're coming up with these, it's a spiritual experience, or it's just a wonderful explosion of emotions that you're actually, just crying, not for a sad kind of crying, but like a release when you're actually doing your work? Because I know I experienced that, and some other artists do. So I'm wondering, like, am I the only one? Well, I know I'm not the only one, but do you experience that, like, as a visual artist and having such spiritual work? I mean, you're writing the words of God, the holy book of the Quran is in a lot of your work, and just creation of, like you say, you're doing something for a holy day, and it's just your whole career, your whole existence, your whole divine purpose is a very beautiful experience. So do you have those moments in your art like that?
Honestly, I've had all kinds of moments. I don't think it's definitely a multifaceted, process. For me, it's been a very polishing process. In being that, in one case in particular, a good friend of mine had asked me to write the Salawat of Ibn Arabi. And prior to that, I hadn't really had much knowledge of Ibn Arabi, and he's very dynamic and influential, and just a beautiful saint. But my experience of Ibn Arabi became very personal because sometimes the space of creating can be so quiet where you actually can hear the inspiration coming. And in my case, it was my self-criticism coming out into the work, and what I was hearing, from myself was dominating the process, and I just couldn't get past hearing my own self like criticize every single thing that I was doing. And I just felt like, how to say without sounding crazy, that sometimes when you're working on the art or the influence from a master like that, you can feel their influence healing you.
Wow.
So I felt like it was really teaching me to stop criticizing myself so much. There's an aspect of the nafs that wants to criticize, and I would hear Sheikh Nazim say, sometimes you have to ignore that, because it is a very dampening kind of a force. And so I think that was the kind of healing that came out of that process for me, and for that reason I call it Paint with a Saint. That might be a program that I come out with later.
I was about to say that. Hello, look, t-shirts, sweatshirts. Come on, look. I'm also a life coach, so I'm the kind of person that when I talk to somebody, I'll have a whole business for you, a rebranding, a brand new colors. And I'm like, okay, now go do it, get paid. No,
I may have to call on you. Who knows? Because I'm not good at organizing.
I see it really clearly. I'm like, oh wow. I just see an empire when people talk. I'm like, do you know you have everything? You don't even need me. I just listen to you, and then I got a little plan for you. Like, okay.
Absolutely. So, definitely the spirit of our ancestors, and speaking particularly in Awliya Allah, sometimes they're there, they not sometimes, but they're there to influence that healing in you. And so, I had, during that process, so much calamity happened. Like I spilled this big blue cup of water all over my living room floor. It was, I felt he was really just trying. It was this corrective process. Like, if you don't stop, just stop. Just stop what you're doing. Bam, here's a sign that you need to stop. And so many learning curves came out of that process. The paintbrush that I was using, when the water fell, I fell, and then the paintbrush split. It like the whole handle split. It was a very fine.
Look, if you're, people, I'm asking for a sign. You're like, okay, really?
So the signs don't appear with like butterflies and stars. Sometimes the signs are just like, you know what? Here's a broken chair. You know what? You're gonna fall out this chair and get some in your head. So that was really what it was for me.
Oh, and yeah. That is hilarious. It reminds me of a time. It reminds me of a story when a time I was in Detroit with my husband, and our little girl, she was I guess like a few months. And I was like upset with him because he didn't do something. It was something petty. Like, you didn't open the car door right or something. It was crazy. We were walking up to the African Fest, and I'm just talking, and he's just looking at me like trying to ignore me, right? And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Why did I like fall right on my butt?
Yes, right? It's those signs that just like, you know what? Sit down right here.
You're on punishment. I felt so, he laughed, and we both knew it. He was like, see? And I was like, and it humbled me. I was so quiet.
Exactly. So
this was a good, great conversation. It was, you're and that's why I love talking to artists who are really connected with just their art in such a bigger way, a more spiritual dynamic connection. They recognize it, they live it, they know it, because the words. And inshallah, it's going to be that when other people listen to it, because it's definitely been that for me as well. And I just have one last thing I want to ask you. So let's just say it's about 150, 200 years from now, and whatever form of communication that is available at that time, we don't know, because hey, when I was born, there was no internet, so who knows what it's right? Encyclopedia Britannica. But anyway,
yep.
And people are reading about you, or even your greats are reading about you, and they're like, our great grandmother, Malika Ayubbi, what did she do? What do you want? What is the one thing or one line? If you could have like a 1 or 2 line bio, what would you want to be known for? And it could be anything, not necessarily your art, but what do you want to be known for? Or remembered? Like, how do you want people to remember you, written in the history, the all-time history?
Wow. That's a huge question.
I'll give you time to think about it.
Honestly, to be completely honest, because like they say, everything disappears but the face of Allah. So the work that I'm doing, I can't ever take credit for it, because I've seen how Allah arranges these things for me to be able to do it. It's really, I consider a miracle. Me being not classically trained, being a person involved in the diaspora, finding myself landing in America, being a Muslim, now doing Islamic art. Like, how could that have happened? So to me, it's like a miracle that I'm witnessing, and I'm constantly seeing that unfolding. And I think that is due to definitely to, like I said, my ancestors' prayers, my sheikh's prayers, and what they've always taught us is that you make salawat on the Prophet ﷺ and you will see miracles. So if I'm known for anything, I would want to say that you make salawat on the Prophet ﷺ and you will see miracles. Um, I don't, for the work I'm doing, you know, if Allah decides that it is something that, because it came from Him in the first place,
Yes.
If through my vessel He decides to honor me for it, I'm really really grateful. But I also don't want that to be a means for me to like return to Allah with any kind of arrogance. So I'm like,
Yes.
I'm scared of that. I'm scared of really taking any kind of credit towards that direction. For me, it's very scary. So for me to be remembered is what I said. You know, you make salawat Prophet and you will see miracles.
Wow, that was the most beautiful answer ever. And I'm always humble. I just actually remembered that question. When I used to host radio shows for years, and I was like, I haven't done interviews in years, and so thank you for that. I needed to hear that, and I hope those, inshallah, those who listen can really. I know they're going to benefit from your conversation. And how can people contact you? I know you do commission artwork. You have I'm sure you have some artwork for sale. How can they contact you on social media or just to keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, social media for me, because I'm such a '90s child. You know, it's kind of this foreign instrument. I'm always like, how do you? And now they're on Clubhouse. What is that? You know, so it's always evolving. So, but for now, the body of my work can be seen on Instagram, and then I have my website. And through that website, you can see sort of a portfolio. Instagram is a bigger one, but then on my website, there's a commissions, you know, page where you can kind of request a commission from me, and then you know, of course, DMs. I know people don't want to slide in your DMs, but that really is one of the most direct ways to.
I'm sorry, that's hilarious. Slide in. I know. I tell people you can slide in my DM, and if you say something crazy, I just ignore you. So if you know I don't answer back, just know that you said something crazy. Like,
you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, I don't think I'm doing anything where people want to like approach me with anything crazy. So, slide in my DM.
That's funny. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a delight, and I admire visual artists so much. It's just like I say, your pictures take me on a journey, and even the beauty I've seen you with a few times you decorated for events, and I'm just like, wow, like because even though I'm an artist, those are the things that I don't do, and I'm the kind of person like even when I decorate, I have to literally look in a book.
Yeah.
Like, okay, does this go here? Does this go here? I'm looking on Instagram and sneaking in people's houses to see how. I know what I like, but actually trying to put it together is like, okay, I need some help here. So to me, it is a gift from Allah, it's a gift from God that you can actually put something on a canvas or make it look nice or make a room look like extraordinary, a plain room, and it looks like heavenly when you finish with it. So thank you so much for your contribution to humanity and to my timeline and to everybody I know. They're always saying, "Look in the back, I have some of her art," and I'm like, "Oh, she's famous." So may you also be famous in divine presence for your saliwats as well.
I mean, and you also, sis, I just love the energy. I love the whole movement you're trying to put out there, connecting, spirituality and healing with the arts.
Yes, that is the intention. My field work. Thank you for joining me. Peace and divine love.